Hello and welcome to a new YouTube series called the Weekly Mailbox, where you get the chance to send in your Formula E questions to the team at Formula E Zone. My name is Jack George Maynard and I'll be answering your questions today and doing my best to pronounce your names. But firstly, just before we get started, I just want to say how great it was to see so many questions come through on Twitter and Facebook. Obviously, we're doing this new series. We want to get as much fan engagement as possible, get you involved as much as possible. So we really appreciate it. And obviously, a lot of people ask questions and they won't be in this episode, but we've kept a bank of questions, hopefully for the next episode and episodes to come, that we can then look to get your questions in. But keep posting your questions on Twitter and Facebook and our community page on YouTube. So, let's get started. Our first question, now this is where it gets a bit difficult and I have to start pronouncing your names. So the first question comes from Heyo Daniel, or Daniel Heyo. He's asked, which circuits are your most/least favourite? Now, that is a difficult question because obviously there's so many Formula E tracks, and we go to Formula E tracks and some of them are really good, some of them not so good. I think for me, of recently, I really enjoyed Bern. Now, I know Bern was quite difficult to overtake. It was narrow, but I felt like it had character. It had the uphill section. It was tight and twisty. I really liked that part of it from Bern. And even though it was difficult to overtake, I really liked that. I also like Rome. I think Rome has a really good character. Different sort of 90-degree corners into sweeping uphill sections as well. So, and it had that chicane and hairpin, so it's got a bit of everything, and I think it provides good racing room. So, Rome and Bern, I would say, would be my favourite tracks. My least favourite track. Okay, my least favourite. Right, so we discussed this, and we discussed it was Monaco, but it's not like we don't like Monaco. I really love Monaco, but it's that short layout. It's just too short for Formula E. I really think that we could have gone to this full track in Season 5. But we didn't for, various reasons. So I'm hopeful when we go back there in Season 7 that we will use the full Grand Prix layout. And then I think Monaco won't be my least favourite track. I think Monaco will be one of my favourite tracks. And it'll be really interesting to see what, how Formula E car goes round Lowe's hairpin into Portier through the tunnel. I think it'll just be a great spectacle. But at that moment, the Monaco short layout track, I think for most Formula E fans, is probably the least favourite track on the calendar. So our second question comes from Korku Anoma. I'm very sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but you have an amazing question, though. So it's an amazing question you asked. Because you asked, what is the most significant advantage of being a customer team than being a supplier? So normally when we think of that, it's the other way around. Being a supplier, what I assume you mean by that is being the manufacturer, like DS, Audi, and so forth. So normally they're at the advantage, because they've got that 15 days extra testing compared to the customer team, which the customer team only has the normal pre-season testing. They don't get any allocation for extra days testing because they're not a manufacturer. But I think there is one area to answer your question which is significant, and that's software. And software has been so huge in Formula E. And I think you have to go back to Season 4 with Techeetah and Renault. Now, Techeetah were a customer team of Renault, okay? And who won that championship? Techeetah, as a customer team, because they worked and understood the software of the car. And that was huge, and it was probably huge this season as well for Techeetah, winning the Drivers' Championship with Johnny McVan for a second time. And I think what Mark Preston has done, and that team has done, on the software of that powertrain in Season 4 was incredible, because Renault were nowhere with their own powertrain. They didn't even win a race in Season 4. And, that had the likes of Sebastian Buemi in it. It was just incredible to see how a supplier in that season was struggling to get the best out of their powertrain, but a customer team was able to. It's the same really with Audi and Virgin this season. Virgin had to work on the software, and that made them competitive. And at the earliest stage of the season, they were a bit more competitive than actually Audi were. So then as the season progressed, Audi sort of got on top of their powertrain and sort of overtook towards the end of the season. But for me, definitely, to answer your question, software was crucial in why Techeetah won Season 4, and probably the main reason why there is an advantage in some respect for being a customer team to a supplier. But in retrospect, normally it is the supplier that has the advantage because you've got that extra day's testing. And obviously, when you've got those extra day testings, you should learn more about your car. But sometimes it doesn't always happen, which we've seen. So it was a really good question. I really enjoyed thinking and discussing and thinking of reasons why, a customer team would be an advantage when, it's like flipping the script in a say. It's like saying, well, this is going to happen, but actually, what happens if it doesn't happen? So I thought that was an amazing question. Thank you so much for asking it. Okay, so question 3 comes from Owen Hale, probably one of the names I could easily pronounce. Pre-season testing predictions. Wow, Owen, that is a sucker punch of a question to ask. It's so early. Like, they're just testing now. Like, how can we... It's not like, predicting who's going to win next season's championship. To be honest with you, we've discussed this a lot as a group in the office, and we've decided that we still don't think Mercedes and Porsche will be strong. We think they'll be strong, but whether or not they'll be available to start winning races from Adria is questionable. So I'm not expecting them to set the world alight. I could be wrong, it's predictions, but, Formula E is such a series where experience means everything. And because Mercedes and Porsche are now building that experience, I think Mercedes will be ahead of Porsche because of that HWA link. I think that's crucial. I think Mercedes probably have a chance of winning a race next season if they get it all together and, get everything right. It's still going to be difficult because Tech Cheetah, BMW, Audi, they're going to be the teams to beat. That's the par. And Mercedes and Porsche have got a real tough ask to go and beat them in the first season. We saw Jaguar come in and struggle to do it. So I can't see Mercedes on Porsche being too... I'm not saying they're going to be like a backmarker team like Jaguar effectively were in the first season. I think they'll be midfield, sort of like battling for podiums at some races just being in the midfield. I think that's to be more expected, but it's so early to tell. I still think Tech Cheetah will be strong. I think they will be the team to beat. I think, they could have won the championship by miles if they didn't suffer the early problems at the beginning of the season, especially in Adria with, the drive-through penalties that they received for over going over 200 kilowatts an hour during the race. And even in that race, when you go back to look at it, John-Eric Verne got the drive-through penalty and still finished second. So if they got some of the races together and if qualifying wasn't as controversial as it was, then I think they could have walked last season's championship. So I suppose qualifying, in a sense, made that interesting. But to answer your question, really, it's anyone's game. Tech Cheetah still would be my favourites going into the season with BMW and Audi, and I think Mercedes and Porsche will be there or thereabouts. The others, who knows? It's whoever builds the best powertrain. But that's why we love it. So we're going to pre-season testing, and we don't know, and that's the beauty of it. And we probably won't know till qualifying in Adria, as the bias would always say, like, never read too much into pre-season testing, because we thought BMW were the quickest team in pre-season testing last season because they blitzed the field, and we thought, wow, are they going to walk it? They looked like they could potentially have a strong season at the beginning of the season, but they faded away. So sometimes pre-season testing doesn't tell us everything. But great question, one to think about, but I think too early to say. Now, question 4 comes from... The pronunciation on this one is incredibly difficult, so I'm sorry if I get it wrong, but I'm going to pronounce it Yushala Holjic. Now, great name. Your question is, will Pascal Wehrlein race in Season 6? Now, this is an interesting one, because if I was Pascal Wehrlein, I would have been on the phone to Mark Preston about that Tech Cheetah seat after Andre Lotterer left, and I would have been gone there and I said, this is probably your best chance to start winning races and maybe even win the championship. But Pascal, it seems like Pascal's holding out for a late opportunity into Formula 1. Now, is it likely? Potentially it is, but what's more likely, staying in Formula E or going to Formula 1? Like, I don't blame him. Look at Alex Albon. He's just been promoted to Red Bull, so who knows, you take the Formula 1 chance. If it comes for Pascal, it comes, and he's got to take it. But if it's not going to come, then I think it's a certain that he'll be in Formula E next season, because there's no reason for him not to be. But I would have felt, because he's been dilly-dallying, I suppose, waiting for potential Formula 1 seat, his seats in Formula E become more limited. Like, He could have gone to Mercedes. He could have gone and started maybe testing, but he hasn't. I don't think he's been testing the Mercedes Formula E car, so I don't think he'll go there. I know he was part of the driver program and left the driver program to come to Mahindra, so for him to then drive the Mercedes feels, a bit, whether or not that would happen or not. But it was a potential. So then you're looking at Mahindra, really. That's just having another season at Mahindra. And, Mahindra are a great Formula E team and have been fantastic servants to the series. But with names like Mercedes, Porsche coming in now, it's going to get even more harder for Mahindra to start challenging for wins, I suspect. They could still be thereabouts. They've got a good team. Dilbag Gill's, got a real good team there. So whether or not Mahindra will still be there next season is questionable. I hope they are. I hope, they've got a car for D'Ambrosio and Wehrlein potentially to fight. But it's difficult. It's a really difficult thing to say, and I think he's waiting about for a Formula 1 seat. I think, once some of those Formula 1 seats get dotted up in the next couple of weeks, come the end of their summer break, I think a lot of the Formula E seats will start to fall into place. I think everyone's just sort of waiting to see what happens, and then, people in the Formula E paddock will know where they are. But then, I suppose our pre-season testing starts in October, so that goes into September, so it's not that long to, getting a driver ready for pre-season testing. Obviously, it's been done before with Oliver Rowland, so for Nissan, he didn't have that much time, but you've got to then, get a driver that wants to come. So, to answer the question, I think, yes, Pascal Wehrlein will be in Formula E next season. I don't think a Formula 1 seat will come for him. He's had a chance at Formula 1, he's a very good driver, probably deserves another shot at it at all. But I just think it's unlikely. So, and I think for Pascal, his best bet is probably to stay in Formula E and have another strong season. And because there's big teams for Pascal in Formula E now, Audi, Mercedes, Porsche. There's chances of getting a manufacturer drive and then using that to springboard himself into other series. So I think for Pascal, it's just a wait and see process. But I reckon he will be in Formula E. So, moving on then, final question from Ray Chan. Now this question, when I saw this question, I was like, wow. Will cosmetic modifications help create cleaner races in Formula E? If not, what other measures could be taken? Now, honestly, I don't think any cosmetic modifications to the car will make any difference. You could put back when we had Season 1, Season 2, Season 3 and Season 4, where we had that rear bumper thing around the wheel, because obviously if you remember Sam Bird in Lotterer and the puncture that happened there in Hong Kong, that might not have happened in previous Formula E races, so the back of the car seems a bit, but whether or not that's not going to promote cleaner racing, that's just going to, they still might bump into each other. So I don't think it's the car. So I don't think any cosmetic modifications to the car will help create cleaner races. What I think will help create cleaner races is track design. Because I know Formula E is known for the walls and being, the walls being nice and close to each other, and it's a street track, so it's going to be difficult to overtake. You're going to have to expect some bumping, and I think, we don't want clean races. I think we don't want clean races like Formula 1 where you don't want to touch each other, because if you touch each other, you're at risk. I feel like Formula E needs to go down that more touring car sort of look, in terms of, rough is racing, as they say, have a few bumps. I don't mind a few bumps. What I don't want is people hitting each other left, right and centre and getting punctures and, crashing into each other. You don't want to see that. So I think that comes with track design. And having less of these Tech Pro barriers into corners and more runoff areas, more sausage curb chicanes, so you don't want many get out of jail free cards, you don't, but you kind of need some in Formula E, and we have had them before, but we seem to have gone down this Tech Pro barrier route and having every corner being governed by a wall, which I don't think we need. I think we don't need much runoff areas, but we just need a little bit of breathing space in some areas where we go, okay, that's fine, I can just take that bit and then give the position back. Think Mexico. Do we need a Tech Pro barrier where they have to stop and go through? Can't they just have a normal empty chicane? So, let's say the Nelson Piquet and Jean-Eric Van crash happened a bit later, and then Piquet goes into the Tech Pro barrier. he doesn't need that big shunt into the Tech Pro barrier. He could just skittle across. He could take more cars out, you could argue, but I don't think we need just big Tech Pro barriers. I think we just need a space, like a get out of jail free card, which might be just for a cut through a chicane. Like it worked, but then you've got the Mexico turn 4 chicane where they've got that little runoff area. So, and you need that in turn 1, especially in Mexico. So, when you're looking at burn again, you're like, yeah, we needed something like that where drivers could just cut easily and get away with it. And at least we got more cars in the race and we don't got these silly red flag situations, and it cuts all that out and it doesn't make Formula E look like amateur hour. So for me, yeah, it's more track design that answers that question rather than car modifications, because the cars look great. I don't think they need any sort of modifications to make the cars, less. But even if so, it doesn't matter how safe you make the cars. If someone drives into you, someone drives into you. So I don't think cosmetic modifications of the car will make the races cleaner. I think it's just track design, and maybe rules and regulations being followed, being, if they don't want that dirty sort of racing, which we sort of, I'm not saying we saw dirty racing this season, but when we saw a lot of collisions and those collisions weren't being penalised, maybe you need that stricter referee sort of stewards force that will then tell the drivers, okay, I can't do that, so let's drive a bit cleaner. So I hope that answered your question. So that comes it for the end of this episode. Those are the questions we got time for. Thank you so much for everyone who sent in a question, and a lot of you who were in this list sent in multiple questions. So I only wanted to pick one because I wanted to try and get through as many as possible from as many different people. But your questions that you've asked, if you ask multiple questions, have been saved, and maybe we'll revisit them in a future episode. So please, if you want to see more of these, please subscribe. It really helps tell me any sort of feedback that you want to give in the comments, and plus have a discussion. What do you think? Talk in the comment section. We really want to have that community feel. Just chat. We'll be there. Someone will be there from the Formula E Zone team to answer your questions in the chat. And if you want to post questions for the next mailbox, you can do that on Twitter, Facebook, and in the YouTube comments. We'll be checking there as well, or on the community page on YouTube. You can go there and you can post your questions, and you can come on next week's episode. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, and we will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.